a little history on the Vandalia Award recipients.
Okay, you're live.
We're live. Okay, today is the Sunday, the 25th of May. I'm John Lilly, and I'm here with Bonnie Collins, the 1990, is that correct? Vandalia Award recipient?
1990.
1990. We're really happy to have Bonnie here with us today. Now, Bonnie, you're, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to have your 93rd birthday.
I will have the 9th of June.
Good for you.
I have a brother who's 95. So we're a couple of hangers on.
How many siblings did you have coming
I
up?
had 2 sisters and 7 brothers.
7 brothers.
They were older, all over. 2 younger brothers were younger. There was 11 of us. And the oldest was not young, but the 10 good. 7 brothers and 7 boys and 3 girls.
And you were one of the younger ones?
I was one of the younger ones. There were 2 brothers younger than I. Excuse me.
And this was in Doddridge County?
In Doddridge County, yes.
But near the Wetzel and Tyler line? Or
Tyler and Wetzel joins Doddridge.
right close to where you're from?
I graduated in Tyler County High School because I was closer to their bus than I was to Doddridge was.
Mm-hmm.
And I graduated in Tyler County High School in 1935.
What did they call your little area? What was your...
What did they call me?
What did they call the town, or it wasn't a town where you lived in, you lived in a farm,
Oh, I
right?
lived on a farm in Valhalla. Well, it was called Central Point.
Oh, okay.
And West Union is the county seat, and that's the only town. All got little burghs around, but West Union is the biggest place.
Mm-hmm.
It was West Union when I still lived there.
And so your dad farmed?
Yes, he farmed. He drove a truck for the gas company back before they had tubes in the tires, just hardware on the wheels.
Mm-hmm.
That was like several years ago. I was about 8 or 9 after that when he did this. But he mostly farmed. And he was a singer and he taught music. He taught the notes. He wouldn't have anything to do with the shape notes. He wanted the round notes. He said anyone that could read round notes but shape notes just had some roots.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught hymns to schools and churches and whoever needs something. He just did his hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And we all played country music.
Played guitars and fiddles and
Yes,
such?
you played the mandolin. You know, I used to play the mandolin. We called that tune the King's Head. I think they called it Soldier Joy now.
You called it the King's Head?
Yes, I remember playing that. My brother played the guitar and the banjo, and I played the mandolin and the guitar. Later years, I played the other harp with them. I mean, not with them, of course, but I played the other harp. But I remember we'd walk 5 or 6 miles to a railroad station and take our instruments and get on the flat train and go for about, maybe 20 miles to visit my brother. And when we get on, the conductor would come back and say, play me some music. We didn't have a case for instruments. We had pedal slips. And we played music for about 10 miles.
On the train?
On the train. When I look back at it now, that was a great experience. And the only songs were different then. And people would gather into the car where we were and say, sing this or sing that. In Fairmont, WMN had the first radio station. And we were on the radio station one time in 1930. Pioneers.
Yeah, it's early days.
Yes. But that was some...
So you would actually go out and do performances? You and your brothers and sisters would perform?
Oh, yes, we lived on the farm, naturally. Oh, there was 10 of us that lived in man and womanhood, and 5 of them were school teachers, older than I. And I'm the only one that never amounted to anything. Still, was the truth. Everything I did was volunteer work, I guess. I was a 4-H leader for 15 years. I was a foster grandparent in the school for 10.
What does that mean to be a foster grandparent?
Well, it was an organization for older people. You had to be 60. And for schools, they'd go into the schools. We worked 4 hours a day for $2 an hour would be $8 for one day, wouldn't it? $40 a week. And we help children who had emotional problems at home or something, or were slow learners. And we helped them, and we were just like a grandparent. And we had them just so many hours a day, and it was wonderful. I just loved it, because there were so many nice kids. Well, it was odd, but the ones that caused the teachers so much problems were always wonderful to me. They were really was respectful to me, and they weren't all perfect now, I don't mean that, but they had this thing for old people, I guess. And when I first went to work, the teacher said, the grandfathers too, the men were part of the program. And they said, this lady is older. One little boy said, how old are you? I said, how old do you think I am? And he said, oh, you're at least 30. I was 62. That was a good experience.
So this volunteer work, is that what led you to perform and tell stories? Would you do?
Oh, I told stories at school, at that school, where I worked. And then I belonged to a homemakers club. And one night, the PTA, I was president of PTA one year, their group was supposed to come from Weston and play music, country and western music. The last minute they didn't show up, so one of the women said, well, why don't you go out and announce this? I said, well, I will, but I don't like to, that they were canceled. She said, oh, I'll go out and sing them a song. And someone handed me the guitar and said, go on. So I went out and apologized to them. We weren't going to have any program. And I did sing a song, and I told a couple jokes. And that was on Friday evening or Saturday evening. And on Tuesday the next week, I got a call from West Union wanting me to go out and entertain at their club. That's how I got started trying to do it. So I go tell stories, grown-ups and children and, everything. And then when my little book came out, I read all over the state and told stories to kids.
What little book are you talking about?
It's called Rocks in My Pocket, children's book.
Oh, this is a book you wrote?
Yes, well, it was my story, and as a school teacher in Moundsville, he wrote an article in Gold Seal about me. And I told him some new stories, and he said, I can have a story. I'll write that up and have a story. I said, no, you won't, it's mine. I made it up through the years, just bits and pieces of things. And he said, well, if you don't want to do that, how about us going together? So we did. So it was called Rocks in My Pocket. It was a bestseller. And it's now in paperback. A man in Charleston, Bill Clemens, reproduced West Virginia authors. So it came out a few years ago, and it's still selling.
And was that with Mark Harshman?
Mark Harshman.
And he was the fellow.
Oh, yes, he had 2 books out already. And, well, I could look at him, had it. He'd had another book, but since I had put it all together through the years, I decided I'd take credit for it too, because it was really mine. And so that's how that came about. Mark's he's a good author. And he's still writing. But it's just, I said 1991, I think it came out. But when I was in the nursing home in Ohio, they found out about it, and I sold a few of them there. But at Clarksburg, when I came in there, people wanted them, and I ordered from the publisher and paid the West Virginia sales tax. And they sell for $6.95. I pay the West Virginia sales tax and shipping, and I charge them $7, so I make a nickel at least. And I've sold 10 over there, and I've ordered 10 more, and I have orders for them. Just lately, I don't understand it, but thank God.
That's good. Now, what was your maiden name?
Starkey.
Starkey.
Starkey, yes. And you'll never believe my father's first name was Lafayette.
Lafayette Starkey.
Lafayette Starkey.
What did they have a nickname for him?
Oh, they called him Leif.
Leif.
People did. Now, I should tell this, but they named me Bonnie Mae, and they called me that. If someone else called me Bonnie, they'd say her name's Bonnie Mae. And I tried to get rid of the Mae through the years, and maybe I have succeeded lately, but not very well. I meet someone back home and it's Bonnie Mae, how are you?
You don't care for the May?
I don't care for the Mae, but that was their decision, and I was their kid. I had to do as I was told.
What nationality is Starkey?
Well, in the beginning, they went from England to the Jersey Islands, somewhere over there, and then they migrated from there to America. I would, of course, that's a little over my time. My paternal grandfather was a Methodist preacher and a Yankee soldier, and he married 271 couples, and he was in the Civil War, and a lot of the stories that I had access to came through him, to my dad. And he said one day that he started more wars than anyone else he knew of. He married 270 couples. But that was, he was one of the capital was in Wheeling when they made the first war in West Virginia, and he was one of the guards at that capital in Wheeling when the Civil War was his job.
So does your family history in West Virginia go back further than that? Further than the Civil War?
Me?
No, your family, the Starkeys?
Oh, some of them did, yes. They were supposed to be partly Indian, and there were so many versions of stories that they kind of got lost in the transit. There's so many nationalities. My mother was a Snodgrass, and her folks were, I think they were German, I'm not sure. And then my maternal grandmother was a tea garden. So there's two names for you. This was odd. And of course I have the four children of my own, and two of them are school teachers. And one of them's a medical technologist over at Ruby Lab in Morgantown. She's with me today.
Where do your other children live?
Well, the oldest, of course, lives in Sugar Creek, Ohio. And this one lives in Morgantown, and one lives in Buchanan, and she's a teacher. Well, she's a librarian now, but she was qualified for to be a librarian, never to get a job. But she lives in Buchanan, and then my son is a salesman for Mack Truck Company.
Okay.
He's my youngest, only son. And then I have 8 grandchildren and 6 good grandchildren.
Tell me about your husband. Tell me about your husband.
Well, we married older than other people. He never intended to get married, and one day he says he had a weak moment. He was in Preston County, and we met. I worked at Hope on a TB sanitarium, when they had tuberculosis, and they found a cure for it. They don't have it anymore. Anyway, I worked there and I met him. But then they drafted him into the Second World War. And he was in the Second World War about 3 years. And of course, thank God, came home okay. And we had the three other children then. But he was a carpenter. And had a lot of military service before he went into the war. He just come and go. He'd get depression time. He'd go back into the war or into the service and be in a while, and then he'd get out and work just for something or another. But he died of a heart attack in 1969. He was left 2 or 3 days of being 64 years old.
What was his name?
Archie Collins.
Archie Collins.
Yes. And he was a good man. He loved the music. He couldn't play music, but he was so proud that I could strum on guitar. He thought that was a lot of talent. I never told me better.
And during the years you were married to him, did you live in Doddridge County or Preston County?
Well, we lived in Doddridge. I moved back with my parents because I was expecting a child. And when he got out, and my mother had been sick and had stroke, so we stayed there, and I took care of my mother as long as she lived. She had a stroke, couldn't talk. And then my dad got sick, and I took care of him through his illness. And in the meantime, he worked different places in the last few years, and he was a carpenter for the Board of Education in Doddridge. And so he spent most of our time. We owned a farm at one time that we sold, and I inherited a little log cabin that I lived in. We lived in for about 3 years. But he died young. The doctor said because servicemen, the war would weaken their hearts. I don't know whether that's true or not, but anyway, he died quite young. Died in his sleep. They found him dead. But he was a good person. I kidded him all the time, and when I do my silly stories on the stage, I make out like he was a fool, but he thought it was funny.
He had a sense of humor about it.
He's my biggest fan, and I couldn't have done better as far as the marriage is concerned.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. How did you get started coming up here to Vandalia?
Well, like I tell you, I went out and entertained at the PTA meeting, and people around would hear me do things. And I told some stories someplace. What how did I get? Oh, but Billy and Clear had heard of a joke I told, and he wrote to me and wanted if he could use it in a book called After an Appalachian. And I said sure, and then they gave him, he went to them and asked for a list of people that might know stories about Appalachian, or Appalachian, whatever you call it. And I don't recall now who did why I was invited. Tom Scriven was the editor of Golden Seal. And they invited a whole lot of us. George Moore was their governor, and they had some extra money. And he said it had to be used for the arts, and why not have a festival? So that's how that came about. And him nominated me, but a lot of people were invited, and I was one in the beginning.
So that would have been about the first year.
That was the first year, 32 years then. And in the next year, I wasn't invited. In the third year, I came anyway as a spectator, and David Morris said, oh, don't go back home. Stay out. Chad's got you, thanks you on the program. So Dave did an awful lot for me. He's the one probably in the beginning. And he had festivals on his farm, and I was at the festivals on his dad's farm.
One of those Ivy Dale.
Yes. And then to the mill. Went to the mill in one Morgantown. So I've attended a lot of festivals. And it's a reunion every year because you meet your old friends. And I like that kind of music. And so many people, so many good people in the world. You don't hear about the good ones. If something done wrong, if someone does something wrong, it's on the front page. But it's a good class of people. And at Christmas time, Bill Harrison at the mill, Bill said that we will come and visit you in Ohio. And I said, well, that sounds great. And it did. And of course, he never do it. And the 8th of December, Bill Harrison, George Doddridge, and Max Samples all came to Ohio to visit me.
They did.
I was flabbergasted. And we had such a wonderful day. And my daughter, they said they'd take me out to eat. And I said, well, why don't we just eat in here, at your house? My daughter said, I will fix you a meal. She cooked a nice meal. Oh, just everyday grub. And they came, we had a wonderful visit. And now I went through the years to nursing homes myself and entertained. Anybody would say, Lord, do this or that for us, I'd go. And I remember how much, I made a lot of money the first time. I got a $5 bill. But I had a lot of surgery, and that's why I moved out of state, was because she wanted me to come and live with her. And I decided it was stupid, burden on her, and I'd eventually end up in all four of them wanted to take me in their homes, and I said no. I've got four of the best kids on earth. They're just as good to me as they can be, as anyone could be. But I don't want to have to. I'd like to be I'd like to be independent.
Well, we're sure glad that you made the effort to come see us this year. lot of people glad to see you.
Oh, I'm always so glad to come down here, because I have so many friends. Through the years, just people, and I'll remember their faces, try to remember their names. That tells you I'm getting older. But, I love the festival.
Well, the festival loves you, Bonnie.
Well, I hope so.
It's good to have you here.
I hope so.
Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I run about to walk down, but it is.
No, it's a pleasure to visit with you.
Well, thank you. You don't know how much I enjoy having people listen to me. That's one thing I do best is talk.
And you do good. You do great. And enjoy your singing. Enjoyed your singing the other night. You sang, what song did you sing? That one that you made up about?
I picked a lemon.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, there's several lemons in the world, and I wrote that years ago. And George said, "Why don't you sing that tonight?" And I said, "Oh, I don't think I remember." You know, I had no one to play, and he said, "Well, Miss, you'd play for me?" He said, "Well, of course I would." So he played. And I sang, "I picked a lemon."
And you had to tell
And you
George.
wouldn't believe the women that flocked to me and said, "I know what you're talking about."
And you had to tell George when to quit. You
Yes.
just kept on playing after you were done
Oh,
singing.
yes.
How does the words to that go?
Can you tell us the words to that? A little bit, just a little bit of the words to that song?
Sing it or just poetry?
Yeah, if you want to
Sing it.
Whatever.
Once I was young and sassy, and just about half the size, searching for a husband that I knew would be quite a prize. But I picked a lemon, I picked a lemon, I picked a lemon, I picked a lemon in the garden of love. That's a one verse. Poor mother, she tried to warn me, but I had made up my mind. Well, I knew what kind of a husband a pretty girl like me could find. But I still picked that lemon, I picked the lemon, I picked the lemon, I picked the lemon in the garden of love. Then the verse said, now my life is all work and worry. I wash dirty socks and old shirts, but that's just one half of my trouble. I have a house full of young squirts. Now, young ladies, you're all take warning, and you think that you're falling in love. And take it from me, you'll be blind as a bat when Dame Cupid gives you that shove, and you like, pick a lemon, I picked a lemon, I picked a lemon, I picked a lemon in the garden of love.
All right.
My voice is gone, I can't sing anymore.
Thanks, Bonnie.
The two grandsons and a daughter, I had to pay them to do that.
All right, I think we're done.
Done?
Thank you. Thanks, Bonnie. I'm glad we did.
Well, thank you.